wanted to address a question that maybe 90% of the people who come to see me ask. And it's not a very direct question, and you might not be considering this, but the chances are it's in the back of your mind. And that question is, and this is the way the clients put it to me is, well, what do you think? Should I go ahead and file bankruptcy? So I think what they are really saying is, how do I know when it's time for me to get serious and file bankruptcy? Commonly when I'm asked that question, there are times when I could tell them, absolutely yes, you need to file, and you probably should have filed yesterday. And many times I say it just depends upon your situation. Usually I will not give advice on that question until I've heard and analyzed through a questionnaire I give to my clients their situation. But I want to share with you some stories that I think are very helpful. And these are stories that are true stories. They come from clients that I've met and that I've worked with. And I think their predicaments can help you get a grip on whether it's time for you to go ahead and file or not. So, one classic example I have is an elderly gentleman. He came to see me, and he had been working for many years. I want to say more than 25 years with the company. And when this current recession hit, he got laid off. And he was of the impression he could get rehired by his company, the company would bounce back, or surely he'd find employment. Unfortunately, he did not. He wasn't hired back, and he didn't find employment. And he was a man of strong faith and belief in himself, and he really believed he would pull through this, as many people do. So what he started to do was continue to pay his bills, and he started robbing or raiding his savings to pay the credit card debt. And he continued doing that until his savings was gone. And the next thing he did was he turned to his 401k, and he started taking out of his retirement in order to pay creditors because he still believed he might pull through this. Well, more than a year had gone by, and he realized the situation isn't changing, and he used up a good chunk of his retirement paying debt that ultimately he ended up having to wipe out their bankruptcy anyway. And the shame of it was that he used money that he could have retained through filing bankruptcy. Bankruptcy would allow him to keep his retirement. And the bigger shame of it is that he used the money that he needed in the future for his own retirement. So that's kind of a situation that you might want to reflect on, that might tell you when it's time. And that is when you start taking things from yourself that you're going to need in the future, when you know it's kind of almost a helpless situation, and you might end up filing for bankruptcy anyway. Another situation that was really quite astonishing was a couple that came to see me. They were making about $180,000 a year combined, and the husband lost his job through a big national company. I won't say their name. He was an engineer, a very well established company, and he was making just over six figures, and his wife was making almost 6 figures. Well, he got laid off, and he was an engineer, and what he found is that him and the other 5,000 other engineers that have been laid off are all applying for the same job, and it's been fairly difficult for him to get a job. His wife, shortly thereafter, was told that her work hours are being reduced. So she went almost to half of what she was bringing home. Now this couple could have thrown their hands up in the air. That's a big dose of bad luck. But what they elected to do was to situate themselves, because they saw this coming, and they found a home that was actually bigger than their house, but they got it through a short sale, went and purchased that home, let their other home go to foreclosure. They got a lower payment, something that they could afford, and they began to rebuild their situation. That was smart, proactive thinking. So that's the other extreme. This is a couple or a family that jumped ahead and cut off a tragedy. In fact, it made their situation better. They got into a bigger house. Yeah, it needed some work, but the guy liked doing the work. And it's almost but for filing bankruptcy, it's almost a live happily ever after situation, but it definitely was a live better situation. So those are a couple examples I wanted to share with you. I don't know if they touch on your current situation, but at least you could mull that over and try to apply those lessons to your situation. Obviously, there are some real bright line situations where you should file bankruptcy or seriously consider it. That is, if you're being garnished, you're being sued, something's going to be repossessed that you really want to keep, or something that's very dear to you. If you're being foreclosed upon, those are bright line situations. You might not really need me to tell you you should be filing or seriously consider it under those circumstances. The stories that I just shared with you earlier are stories when they may come into play and help you when your situation is a little more ambiguous and you see yourself headed down a road and you don't know what to do. These are really confusing times. This recession is very difficult, and I hope those stories helped you. Hi, I'm Ted Agnick, the Arizona bankruptcy lawyer. I hope you found the video you watched helpful and informative. I have 20 free videos just like the one you just saw, with answers to the top 20 questions people ask me when they come to see me about whether they should file bankruptcy. You can have these videos free. All you have to do is come to my website, ArizonaBankruptcyGurus.com. That's www.ArizonaBankruptcyGurus.com. And I will see you on that site in a moment.